Welcome, everyone, to episode 19 of the Total Relationship Podcast. I'm Kim Kokenauer, COO at Form Wealth Advisors, joined by my co-host, Tyson Ray, CEO of Form Wealth Advisors. Want to start off today by saying we hear you and we see you. If you feel like you're off on an island trying to do better for your clients, you're not alone. That is exactly why the Total Relationship exists. Tyson wanted to create a compelling alternative to the type of trend that we're seeing in the industry. Today, we're talking about 3 things you can do to implement the total relationship approach with your clients. 1, understand what's shaping their form, their family, occupation, recreation, and mission. 2, ask the right questions with the discovery deck. And 3, stop trying to time the markets and start timing your clients' needs instead. So let's get into it. The total relationship involves an approach of 3 steps to address 3 distinct aspects of the client advisor relationship. Today, we're focusing on 2 of those 3 by the planning investing. But first, Tyson, let's talk about FORM. Let's talk about the acronym a little bit and what it actually stands for.
Yeah, so shout out to Duncan McPherson many years ago. Didn't know him at the time. I know him quite well now, but read a book of his, and it talked about form and it being an acronym or kind of the pillars of a relationship when it comes to financial advising. And my paraphrased version of it was, your family, that money comes down from your parents and inheritances. You create your own money and then you leave it to your kids. And so trying to understand the family dynamic, which is often those that you love are the most important things to you, is important when it comes to dealing with people's finances. And Duncan's take on on O was the occupation. For a lot of people, they've worked their whole lives and their careers help build this wealth, and to understand what that is, to help them navigate from the occupation of working to the occupation of retirement, is a transition or an opportunity for an advisor to walk alongside and understand what that's going to take and how that's going to feel for the client. Recreations are things we do in our life that bring us joy and stress relief. And ironically, they change about every 5 years, give or take, either because we get bored with them, something new comes along we want to spend our time doing, or we realize for some we're not any good at it, and it's more frustrating. Anybody take up golf that isn't any good at golf? Eventually you find something else to do, like pickleball. Anyway, the M then stands in Duncan's world stood for money. We realized that was not the focus we wanted to put on M. We used M as mission, which is what do you want to do with your life while you're here? What impact do you want to make in the world beyond your family and your occupation and the hobbies that you have? And so asking open-ended questions of a client that's coming in, that's new to us in our boarding process, gathering, tell me about your parents. Are they alive? Are they not alive? Tell me about your sisters, and brothers, if there are any. Tell me about your kids, and just asking open-ended questions. Are they married? Are they not married? What are they doing for work as far as the kids are concerned? Do they have kids? So now we're getting into grandkids. Helps us start understanding, okay, who are going to be the beneficiaries, right, in estate planning? Are they in college? Are they not at college? Are they out of the college? Do they own their home? Are they settled in their careers? Like, which one is going to be the one that's going to be that's going to be financially successful that maybe needs some help? And then which one's going to be the spendthrift that also needs some help, just in some different ways? Bonds you to the client. And again, all you're doing is asking open-ended questions, then letting them answer it. Within occupations, it's similar in the sense that what do you want to do in this occupation called retirement when you get there? How do you want to end the occupation that you have? What occupations did you have? How many different career changes? Talk about the path of their life, because work is a very important part of someone's DNA, and just understanding that history helps also speak into the history of often how some of that wealth was made. Recreations, again, will help start identifying what the clients are spending money on, because some hobbies are more expensive than others. What I have found is when you get into the topic of mission, you're starting to identify what are the core values of the client and what drives them. We're seeking to flush out if the client's mission is just to make more money. That's not a fit for us because that's just never enough. You can't ever, you don't. The numbers just keep getting bigger, right? And they're not any happier because the numbers get bigger. But when I start finding people that are giving while they're living and wanting to bless organizations or make an impact, they just have a different spirit about them. And our goal for every client is to accomplish whatever their desires are for their families, whatever their desires are for their occupations and what their occupation is going to look like in retirement. Allow them to enjoy the recreations and their hobbies with the resources that they have, and ultimately have enough left over that there's still this opportunity to make an impact.
I think the important thing to teach here is that you need to learn how to ask open ended questions and then be quiet and let the client speak, because they will tell you what they want to do, or you will pick up on when you ask those open ended questions things that you can pull into the next conversation of maybe looking at post retirement. Is there some other continuing education that they would like to receive to fulfill a hobby or part of their recreational lane, or serve on a board for a nonprofit that they've been passionate about? You have to give the client space to speak if you ask them an open ended question.
Yes.
So, one of the things that is part of, and we'll get into the discovery deck now, is you've talked about this before. Discovery boils down to asking the right questions, but the questions are just the beginning because everyone's story is different. Backgrounds, education, family, diversity, it all affects how our clients view the world and how they handle their money and ultimately their goals and the decisions that they make. So, a high level view, the discovery deck is 39 questions that can help you as the advisor feel confident about asking the right questions of your client and really get to know the people sitting across the table from you. So, Tyson, dig a little bit into this here. First, briefly explain what types of cards are in the deck and the process you go through with the client.
Yeah, so I think I'll do that in reverse. So the process that we're going through is we're seeking to understand the form, family, occupation, recreation, mission, the client's life is taking in the present, right? In what they're thinking about in the future. And then we're going through this discovery deck, asking, again, these open-ended questions, and all designed to flush out who is this person, what matters to them, and what are they trying to do. And the very important point that is so counterintuitive is this is before we get into financial statements. This is before we get into where their money is or their portfolio. I remember when I was doing this early on, that it mattered to me more to connect and start the relationship with understanding why they're trying to do any of these things, what matters to them. That when you start with the money, that's what the whole industry does. I remember when the first impact I had that I thought I'm like, wow, I'm really onto something, was this client brought their 3-ring binder back when statements were you got your state back before everybody got them online. And we met at a restaurant. He plunks this 3-inch 3-ring binder down with this multi-million-dollar portfolio. And he said, I want your opinion on this. And I said, okay. I said, I have some questions I want to ask you before I can give you my opinion on that. He's like, okay, what do you want to know? Now he thought I was going to ask him questions about the portfolio or his current advisor. And I closed the 3-ring binder. Like, I shut the conversation down on this multi-million-dollar piece of paper that was the first page summary of this 3-ring binder deck. I slid it aside. I pulled out a blank legal pad and I said, are your parents alive? And he asked why. And I said, well, because I need to know if they are alive. There are 3 kinds of parents: those that are going to leave you something, those that are going to die with their last penny, and those you have to financially support, which will affect my input on what your portfolio is doing for you. And we started this open-ended conversation of family and then what he did for work and occupation and recreation. And it is just an easy flowing conversation of asking open-ended topical questions and them just kind of filling in, what does that mean to them? The discovery deck then becomes a deeper dive in prioritizing what's more important to them. making more, working to have more income in retirement, or working to a specific age. It's usually one or the other. And what is that from a priority standpoint? Or what is home and home improvements, or a second home from a priority standpoint? These are all cards in this discovery deck. And when you go through these open-ended questions and you're done in this roughly 90-minute conversation, going back to my example of the 3-ring binder, he basically left me the 3-ring binder to give him feedback on his portfolio. But as far as wanting to work with me, it sealed it in just these open-ended questions. It had nothing to do with the portfolio. I was the first person to ever ask him these questions. And I found that's the same for this. He was 60 at the time. I happened to recently put the discovery deck in front of this couple that were 35 years old, and realizing questions about estate and leaving money to the kids and when to retire. After about 5 minutes of handling these cards, this prospective client said, "I've never been asked these questions before. I've never thought about this." It's like, and he was excited to be like, "Oh my gosh, like, yeah, this is what a plan is." And it's relational and it's easy. And all the advisor needs to do is shut up about asset allocation and their past performance, and their portfolio is better than the other advisor's portfolio, or their fee is different than the other advisor's fee, because that's all commoditized. And that's all what the financial industry is focusing on, when that's not really what the clients need. Or at the very least, you can definitely differentiate yourself to the financial industry by seeking to have a total relationship with the client that takes in all this other information that they're wanting to have a conversation about, and then understand how the portfolio comes into play once you understand that relationship.
Yeah. So the answers that the clients give you utilizing the discovery deck really help you create a blueprint for their wealth plan, and making those decisions with them in mind, not just based off of the number of assets that they have under management right now. So for listeners, you can download the deck for free at totalrelationship.com/discovery deck, and you'll find a PDF there. If you want a physical copy of the cards, you can find me or Tyson on LinkedIn and send us a DM, and we can send you a physical deck. But any more with people meeting with clients digitally, it's a great resource to have that way. We also would encourage you to go back and listen to episodes 3 through 5. Those episodes specifically guide you on how to implement the discovery deck into your day to day. And please reach out to us if you have any other questions or need any more guidance on that. So, Tyson, something that's really big from other advisors, and we talk about this often, is trying to teach them to stop trying to time the market and actually get to what you can do and start timing your clients' needs instead. So, why, Tyson, should advisors be timing their client needs and not the market? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the Total Relationship book talks about some of these. And I remember the first one that I realized I had made a mistake by not asking these questions. And it was a client that had come to me, and they were so excited that they had saved up this probably $100,000, I think it was, off the top of my head. And they wanted to make this long-term investment. They wanted, what's it for? Well, we want to set it aside for retirement. We want to start building wealth outside of our 401k plans. And okay, and here we talked about, I thought I was supposed to, here's the pie chart, and here's the portfolio, and here's how it's done compared to the markets, and all what the financial industry had taught me, and put it to work. And there was two problems with that. One was the market sold off. This was in the tech bubble that burst. So all of a sudden, $100,000 went down to about $60,000 within about a month, not a month, within about probably a year or so. And the client called about a year later, when the portfolio is now at 60, and said, "Hey, I bought a car this weekend. I need 60 grand." And I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, I got paid this commission to place this investment that you said was long-term. And now within 12 months, you're telling me you're going to take out, I'm having this conversation in my head. I got paid this commission on 100 grand. It's now down to 60. The markets are down. It was in line, right, with where the markets were at. Artificial intelligence would say, yep, that was what you would have gotten no matter what you did if you applied all the stewardship principles. So there wasn't inappropriate risk taken. And yet here they are, they've bought the car and they're taking the money out. And now I'm at the mercy of the market. It was a horrible feeling. It's like I didn't do anything wrong in the financial industry realm, but I certainly didn't add value. And it was because I didn't ask, which was one of the discovery cards, vehicles of major purchases, how often are you buying cars and when are you buying the next one? To realize they should have never made that investment. I should have never taken that commission. And I realized early on, I never wanted to do it again where I got paid or was being compensated to rent the client's money to end up giving them less because I couldn't plan for when they were going to make that distribution. And what we do now for every client is have a pretty good ballpark of when the next calendar year is that they're going to be buying a car. And they're told, hey, if you even start thinking you want to do something where you're going to spend 20, 30, 40, 50, 80, $100,000, loop us in because you can time clients' needs. And advisor intelligence says you also can tell the client, not now, or can we wait?
Yeah.
But if they've already bought the car and they didn't tell you they're going to be buying the car, you're at the mercy of sending the money when they call. And too many advisors I have found in branches that I've worked in for the first decade of my career were just responding to clients. Clients call in, I need this, you send them that. And it's just, there's a better way of doing that because most clients in their head have a plan very defined actually in the next 3 to 6 months, maybe 12 months. They probably have a pretty good idea what they're even going to do next year. And the more you can identify what those needs are and help the client discern, is that coming from the bank? Is that coming from cash flow on your end? Or is it coming from something from the portfolio? And if it's coming from the portfolio, I want to know that because now I can pay attention ahead of time. Where are the markets at? And if the markets are anywhere near their all-time highs, we encourage clients to fund those needs. Get the money, don't take the risk, get that money out of that portfolio, park it in a money market or cash. So when the client walks on that car lot, they can go and have confidence to know, oh, here, I now have the money to do this. And the advisor knows they added value because they took money the client needed and didn't take the risk of worrying about or having to receive the phone calls and feeling bad. Because guess what? The markets are volatile. And throughout any 12-month calendar period of time, the portfolios can fluctuate 10, 15%. That's I think 15% is actually the average. That's a big difference. And by just asking open-ended questions and where the client's going to spend money, you can identify how you can add value and take so much stress off of yourself, leave a client in a much better position. And then when the markets sell off, and the other thing I found is that when the markets do sell off, if they know they're going to buy a car and that portfolio fluctuated and dropped in value, they will quantify in their head, I just lost my car. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're going to go, wait a second, because they have a tangible need coming up and they'll attach that tangible need to the fluctuation of the portfolio. And I've had them literally tell me, I just lost my car in the market, or I lost, as I said in the previous episode, I lost my ability to buy the combine. Right? Well, if you're earmarking ahead of time what those needs are and parking in cash, now the fluctuation of the portfolio is what it's always been. It's just a fluctuation because they're not tangibly attaching that need to a portfolio because you've predetermined what that need is and set it aside.
Part of that is with a conversation with a client is understanding what their buckets are. And so if they're starting with their bank account, you need to be able to know what's in your client's bank account and do they have the 1 to 6 months worth of funds in their bank account for their day-to-day needs, for their groceries, their mortgage, just their living. And then you as the advisor can help make sure that's what's sitting there in their cash reserves account, making sure that you understand that that can have that additional 6, 12, 24 months of expenses that they've told you about. So it's just sitting there and waiting for them. So if they're planning on buying that new car or taking that trip to Italy next year, you actually have that set aside for them and that their rest of their investments can actually sit in the market and actually take advantage of the actual market cycles instead of being all of their income being vulnerable to market cycles.
Yeah, the foundational review of a client and any client coming into us to begin with is asking the questions about, how much money do you have at any one time in a bank account? And at the same time, it's asking questions of, okay, what credit card balances do you carry, if any? and tracking those things to basically be able to make sure that they have the thresholds that give them the opportunity to ride out the volatilities of the market. And the opportunity for the advisor to basically say, hey, if your thresholds have 50 grand in the bank account and the bank account is now down to 40, do we need to send you 10? And the reverse, if the bank account is 50 and now it's 60, what are you doing with the 10 and encouraging them to go spend it on whatever it is they want to go spend it on? Or maybe we need to, we call it cash management. Maybe we need to then add it over here to the portfolio and basically let it be reinvested because we didn't identify a need for it. Different. And that's fundamentally go after the update of the family and the occupation and the hobbies and the mission in life is to then go through the financial part of what's in the bank, what's the debts, if any, what's the mortgage at, which I guess would be a debt. And are we still buying a car? Are we like starting to check off what these are the wish list items you told me you were doing? Did you take the vacation? What's next year's vacation? That's our annual review. It's trying to identify where are they at now? Do we need to adjust anything to the foundations that are fundamental to wealth management is to make sure you have enough out of the portfolio. In an industry that teaches you to try and get all the money into your firm and get it into your investments, it's like, no, fundamentally it starts with what do you need to have so you aren't worried about the portfolios that we're going to now manage. And then identify into the future what from the portfolio is needed to be distributed back to you to enjoy the life that you have, or what needs to be distributed back to the portfolio to build the wealth you need to have the life you want in the future. And that's so much of an easier conversation with the clients. And what we've gotten to, I have clients that are like so programmed this, we get on the phone or they come in for their annual meeting and they'll just rattle it off. My bank balance is this is that. The mileage of my car is that, like, they know these are what the questions are going to be. And it's not this conversation about how much percentage they have allocated to small caps or mid caps or what's in the portfolio outperforming or underperforming, because that's not what they care about. What they care about is, do they have enough money in their bank account? What they care about is, are they on track to pay down these debts and to build the wealth they're going to need to retire? What they want to know is, hey, am I not going to run out? What they want to know is that, hey, can I do this and not regret it? And the total relationship and the cards and this whole process is designed to equip people to go live their life and not react to the day-to-day fluctuations of a market that no one can time and no one knows what the future is going to hold.
Well, and in summary, these 3 small baby steps can help advisors to begin implementing the total relationship approach now. They don't need to wait. They don't need to stop their entire practice to implement it. All you need to do is start with the understanding and understand your client's form that their life is taking, using the discovery deck to start asking those open-ended questions and let the client prioritize what's top of mind for them in this entire planning process, and really get an understanding of your client's financial needs so that you can start timing their needs instead of trying to time the market. So Tyson, help me wrap up the episode. What other words of wisdom do you want to leave the listeners with today?
Yeah, I think I want to share, how do you start? How do you start this? And what I'd suggest is that if you had a meeting where you were used to reviewing the portfolio or the performance, wherever it is, you can still do that. But what I'd ask you to do first is when the client sits down for their annual review, I would ask you to ask them, can I please pretend like I don't know you for a minute and ask you some questions about your family? And then ask you some questions about your occupation. And then what are you doing for fun? And you can start building by asking permission. Let me pretend for a minute that I don't know you, and let me rebuild and make sure I am now understanding who you are today. You could have been a client for decades. Who are you today? In any relationship, it's understanding and continuing to understand who the person is that's sitting across from you. After you go through some of this information, when you're done getting the form information, maybe some of the discovery cards, identifying what matters to them, you can look back at the presentation you have. Now you get to ask the client, hey, I have all this information about your portfolio and performance and stuff. I can go through that if you want. Do you want me to explain that to you, or do you want me to just tell you you're okay? And one of the advisors I had that joined us 20 years ago used to just create reports and morning stars and had all this comparison that he thought that was their value add. And I said, great, bring it, put it on, leave it on the table, point to the 1-inch stack of stuff you have. And then when you're done asking these form questions and these relational questions, this total relationship process, then you can ask the client, you can point to it and say, do you want me to go over any of that? And some did, and most didn't. And over time, he realized he didn't need to prepare all that stuff because the few questions the clients maybe had, he already knew off the top of the head. And when they know that you've asked these relational questions, they trust you enough to just let you manage the portfolio, which is what they hired you for in the first place.
That's a really good place for people to start. So thank you for turning into episode 19 of the Total Relationship Podcast. If you haven't already, click follow or subscribe to be the first to know when our new episodes are available. They're available every other Tuesday. Check out the episode description for the links and free resources to connect with Tyson and myself on LinkedIn. Also, follow the Total Relationship page on LinkedIn to find a community of like-minded advisors. Until next time.